Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Hello and welcome to the Women's Day podcast, where this week we marked International Women's Day by asking for your thoughts on equality and about the women who inspire you. We also talked this week about whether or not parents should publicly shame their children if they've done something wrong, and we also heard from the Manx bard Stacey Astle. But first, Emily Cattle's baby girl Catherine was born with a serious heart defect in November last year, and she had surgery at just 4 weeks old. She was the youngest baby that surgeons at Alderhay have ever performed such an operation on. Well, happily now, Catherine is doing very, very well, and her mum Emily wants to thank Alderhay and the British Heart Foundation for saving her daughter. We found out how on Women's Day this week, but first Emily began by explaining more about the condition that Catherine was born with.
There's four main problems wrong with a baby born with a Fallot's condition, with the main problem being the connection from the heart to the lungs would be narrow, which meant there wouldn't be enough oxygenated blood going pumping round my baby's body. Mm-hmm. So the baby can actually be born blue, but we were so lucky with Catherine that she was born a pink Fallot's. She was a moderately severe case, which we knew about before we flew over to Liverpool to have her. The whole way through we were so lucky that it actually got picked up, because a lot of Fallot's children aren't picked up until they're born, and that's when the doctor does a newborn check and they hear a murmur, and it's just a little bit of a strong murmur, so they do a bit more investigation, and that's when they find out with most Fallot babies that there's something wrong with the heart. But we were so lucky that on my 20-week scan over here in the Isle of Man, it was picked up straight away. Everything else was fine, but they just couldn't tick off that her heart was functioning normal. She had 4 main pumping chambers, and she had very good anatomy, which was the reason why they could operate on her so soon at 4 weeks old. But yeah, we were very lucky that they picked it up over here.
And so this is the amazing thing. So she had heart surgery at the age of just 4 weeks. That must be some sort of record, I would have thought. Yeah,
she's the youngest baby that Alderhay have ever operated on in a Fallot's case. She weighed 3.6 kilograms. And yeah, she was tiny. That's
incredible. It's just amazing to think, isn't it, that they can actually carry out. So you think the baby was that small, the heart would have been minuscule.
Yeah. She was tiny. Walking her down to the theatre, myself and my husband handing over this tiny, tiny baby we were literally putting our baby in the hands of the experts at Alderhay.
And what was it like, that moment? It must have been terrifying.
It was terrifying. It was absolutely scary. And she was operated on. Well, we walked her down to theatre at 8:35 on Boxing Day morning, and the operation took exactly 6 hours, which we were told it could last, anything between 6 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours. It all depends what happens when they put her on the bypass machine.
And how long was it before, after the operation, so the 6 hours of the operation you had to wait?
Yeah.
How much longer then before you could be told it's been successful?
We were very lucky. Our surgeon actually phoned us 6 hours to the minute from when she went down. So we left her at 8:35 a.m. and then we got the phone call 6 hours later from the surgeon himself to say that the operation went as planned and it was successful. However, the next 24 hours, as with any operation, is when a baby's on bypass, is critical. So she was still on the ventilator when we saw her 6.5 hours later. And she was in intensive care. They're very good at Alderhay. We were with her the whole way. As soon as she was brought in from the surgery, she went into intensive care, and it's all open plan, so you can actually sit beside your baby's bedside and just be with them and hold their hand. And it was very scary, obviously, seeing her on the ventilator that was breathing for her, and that was the next hurdle we had to overcome, was to get her off that and breathing for herself.
A wonderful good news story.
Yeah.
We hear so many sort of bad reports these days, perhaps coming out of the health service, but it was good news over here. It was spotted so quickly and then dealt with so efficiently, wonderfully over there as well.
It was very organised. It was something they couldn't tell over here. They don't have the equipment to investigate to see exactly what was wrong. So we had a couple of appointments at the Liverpool Women's Hospital where they go in depth and they do basically an echo within the uterus to find out exactly what's wrong with your baby's heart. And once we were diagnosed with the fallow condition, I was then booked in to deliver at 39 weeks at Liverpool Women's Hospital on the 23rd of November, and she was born in the morning at 10 to 1 on the 25th of November.
And how, I believe Catherine now is quite literally in the pink.
Yeah, she's very, very pink now. And that was the first thing we noticed when we saw her after the operation, was how pink she was. So we didn't actually realise how blue she was before. She was our first baby, so we had nothing to compare it to. And obviously she had quite a few spells that brought her to the operation. With a Fallow's condition, they can have something called TAT spells, which is where there isn't enough oxygenated blood pumping around the body, so they find it really hard to breathe, and their oxygen saturation levels go right down. And she had to have oxygen quite a few times to bring her sat levels back up, because a normal baby and a normal person is 99, 100%, and we saw some scary numbers, when she went right down to 50%, and we saw a 32, and the red toggle was pulled in Alder Hey, and all the nurses came running, quick oxygen mask on her to bring her back up to normal. And even then, she was, because she was so pink born and her anatomy was so good, she never really went blue, she just went grey. But when we saw her for the first time after the operation, it was like a different baby. She was so pink, and the soles of her feet and her hands, she was just so pink, and we were like, oh my goodness, you were blue.
You're paying tribute, obviously, to the great work of the health services on the island, and indeed over there in Liverpool as well. But you're also aiming to do something a bit more tangible. Yeah,
and we're actually going to do something which is, I'm calling a pink party. And we're not celebrating the fact that she's a girl, even though we're very, very happy that she's a girl. I never had a normal pregnancy. We were so worried how she would be born, whether she'd be able to breathe for herself, and, going to other people's baby showers. It was heartbreaking for us. And I just decided then when I was pregnant that I wanted to do something for Catherine and to give back to Alder Hey and over here, and for further research for the British Heart Foundation as well. That it would be nice to throw a mini baby shower. And then the idea for a pink party was born, and we decided to celebrate the fact that Catherine is now really pink and her oxygen levels are now 100% and not 60 anymore. We want to throw a little party for her, and we're going to charge people, which sounds really bad, you've got to pay to come to a party, but it's £5 a ticket for all our friends and family. And the Pulrose Golf Club have actually donating the room to us, and they're putting on a hot buffet for us, and we're having a DJ, and it's going to be a really good celebration of Catherine's life. And we're going to ask local businesses if they're able to donate, any prizes that we can auction off as a raffle, and people all our friends and family can pay for a raffle ticket and stuff, and every single penny that we raise will be going to Alder Hey Children's Hospital and the British Heart Foundation, so 50-50, because it was Alder Hey that saved her, but it was the research done behind the scenes through the British Heart Foundation too. So we just want to honour both of them because they gave us our little girl back.
And you've set up a Just Giving page, I think?
I have, yeah. It's a Just Giving page. It's under Catherine Cattle, open heart surgery at just 4 weeks old. So if anybody wants to donate anything, all money will go to the British Heart Foundation in Alder Hey, because we can't thank them enough for saving our baby girl.
The whole idea of having International Women's Day, there is a general theme. I think this year's theme is parity. It's interesting, we're going to be talking about the need to have an International Women's Day at all on the show tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that? Why do we need a day specifically highlighting women?
I think when we get comments coming in like that, specifically saying that this is why women are paid less, it's not necessarily showing that women are viewed as equal. And because of a medical issue that occurs fully, women shouldn't be treated in this way necessarily. I think Women's Day is important to just point out all the fantastic things that women do and all of these roles they're in, but also it's just such a big topic, I suppose, in terms of feminism in general, but why shouldn't there be a day for women? And another thing that's very important, especially when Mother's Day gets brought up, is the fact that there's so many women that do so many fantastic things who aren't mothers. So it's nice to be able to celebrate all of these different achievements in a variety of ways.
Can I ask then, because we will be talking about this tomorrow anyway, but one of the things we were discussing earlier, from what you're saying then, it's good to celebrate the equality. Shouldn't there then also be an International Man's Day?
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
There you go.
I'm one of those horrible militant feminists that would say every day is Men's Day, which isn't always going to be a popular opinion, but I think there's a lot of issues in society with the way that women are viewed, and I know a lot of people disagree hugely with that, but personally from my experience, I've been in situations where there's definitely been a hugely different view between myself and other people, and as a woman who's studying in an area which is very masculine and male driven, I find a lot of the time I get quite patronised and things like this. So personally, I think it's nice to be able to celebrate women in these areas who are doing fantastic work.
So you do feel that you're viewed differently as a female poet rather than just as a poet?
I don't know if it's necessarily in the poetry world. Since I've started doing the bard role, I've met fantastic people and I've had nothing but support at all. But I'd say that within the poetry world, there's probably a lot of people who think slightly differently to a lot of other people. It's generally described as artsy-fartsy, isn't it? You get that kind of attitude. And it's not the case with everybody, but I think there is a bit more liberal thinking maybe. And you get a range of people in society, but I've been in other areas where I do get looked down upon a bit, and I think all of us have probably experienced that at some stage in our working careers and otherwise.
Jan, would you describe yourself as a feminist?
No, I don't think I would. No, I mean, I work in a female-dominated profession, and it's lovely to see, actually, as in libraries, more and more librarians are going into the senior management roles. When I first started in libraries 20 years ago, I worked in Leeds Libraries before moving over to the Isle of Man, and all the head librarians were men. As I left, sort of about 15 years later, it was half and half, and I now understand from my moles still in Leeds that the senior management team are all women. And that to me represents the fact that it's a female-dominated profession, and it's only right that the women have sort of risen to the top. But through achievement, through being there and doing it on the ground, working their way up.
So then, imagine your child does something wrong and you think they need to understand the consequences of their actions. How far would you go to do that? Well, one mother has taken to Facebook to publicly shame her 12-year-old son after she found out he'd been bullying a new girl at his school. Terry Evans said she was disgusted when she found out her son had trodden on the girl's foot so hard it had snapped the heel on her brand new shoes. So she wrote a Facebook post and it said,
"If you so much as breathe in her or anyone's direction in a bullying manner, I will personally hand you over to their parents for every demeaning chore they see fit for as long as they do. You can kiss goodbye to your birthday money, as you'll be buying the girl a new pair of shoes and a bunch of flowers."
Well, that post has been shared nearly 60,000 times in the past 2 weeks, and it's attracted support and opposition, I think it's fair to say. Some have praised her initiative and bravery in being so open about her son's wrongdoings. Others suggest it's tantamount to little more than bullying in itself. But what do you think? Was this mother right to post the status to show her son and his friends that his actions had consequences, or is it just another form of bullying? Women's Day at manxradio.com. You can text 166 177. We've posted this story on the Women's Day Facebook page. You can also comment via Twitter. It's at MR Women's Day. I think the first thing that I'd want to say is that her son is 12. Technically, he shouldn't even be on Facebook, and nor should his friends, if that was the idea of this, to show them the consequences of their actions. What did you make of it, Jo?
I wouldn't like to be him going into school the next day. Could you imagine that?
Oh, no.
Consequence of that in itself. I think that, it's pretty horrific. These kids, these teenagers, they push us to the limit sometimes, and I can understand so many different things, and I am absolutely not here to judge, because people would probably obviously judge me on certain things that go on in my life with my children, so I can only see that she's been pushed, and maybe she's tried other tactics. I don't think we know what else she's done. Maybe she's talked to him, maybe she's spoken to the teachers, maybe no one is willing to do anything, and so the only thing she can feel that she can do is scream out to the public and say, you know, this is not a part of me, because I think a lot of parents feel as if they're being judged, and she may be one of these people that feels that that's the first thing that's going to happen, is that she's being judged as a parent, and maybe she feels that she's a great parent and doesn't want to be judged. Putting it on Facebook, oh, it's just horrific for the world to see. That may obviously stay there for the rest of their lives. She's using the hashtag I will not have a bully in my house, which has now gone viral, and it's all over the world. And it just worries me that did she actually want it to be so public? Because, I mean, if you look at this online, she's in the Indian newspapers, she's in China, she's in France, she's everywhere. You know, did she actually understand that that might happen? That's what I wonder.
I guess that's the whole point, though. She wanted to publicly shame him, and she has done that.
But
has it
can,
backfired?
Yeah, but you can change your settings though, can't you? That maybe, you know, her setting is public and actually she thought it was private and just shared amongst her friends. So maybe the setting that she had it on wasn't actually meant to be that it went so public. But the fact that she's done it in the first place actually does seem, the words that she's used also are pretty bullying in themselves as well.
So imagine you're in her shoes then. You have this 12-year-old son, quite easy for you to do. You do have a 12-year-old son. And you found out he's bullying. How would you handle it?
I would speak to him first of all and say, obviously, that it's come to my notice and I've appeared that this is happening, and we would have a chat about it. And if it wasn't going anywhere, then I felt that I needed to, then I would literally sit down with his teacher and him together in the room, and I would speak to the three of us about it. I would also make him, as this person has done, clearly spend their own money on getting something for them to say sorry, and I'd get him to write a card and apologise and take it to the person as well. And, you know, I would try and work at it that way. And if that didn't work, give me an hour to think about it.
Jenny, what did you make of this?
I just thought the whole thing is wrong. No, I'm not saying that I agree with bullying at all, but in her way of dealing with this, she is bullying her son, and it's not just a matter of embarrassing him in front of his friends. This is in front of the world, and I don't think it's right at all. There are ways of dealing with this, and as Joe said, you can do this by speaking to him and asking him why he's doing it, because he might be being bullied himself. Maybe he's trying to make himself better in front of his peers. You don't know, and I just think she's gone completely too far with this one.
Jenny, that is just such a good point. In actual fact, a lot of the time, people that are bullying is because they have been bullied. And I wonder and I question, because the way this mother's used her language, what actually is going on in her own home, is it in his own home life?
Margaret Newton, you're not actually on Facebook yourself. You do have 4 children. Would you have ever resorted to this if you'd found out one of them was bullying?
No, I wouldn't at all. I think talking face to face is the answer. I agree with the 2 comments already made, really. Now,
I totally agree with the idea of showing people the consequences of their actions. The idea that he was found out and he had to go and apologise and maybe, spend his money, as you said, Joe, on taking something to the girl. I think the point that the mother also makes when you read the story is that this girl had left her previous school because she'd been bullied. Then
it's an easy target then, isn't it? It's an easy target for him to have gone to her and bullied her, unfortunately, for this poor little girl.
In the way that he has kind of dealt with, he's trying to make himself look better. His mother has done exactly the same thing. It's like her trying to make her a better parent in front of others. She can't write it with this. It's not resolved at all. She's made it 10 times worse, in my opinion.
I am going to keep looking at this. I really want to find out what the consequences of it have been. I want to know more about it. I want to find out from the school what's happened, and also from the mother, amongst her friendships and family, how it's gone down. It'd be interesting to see the story develop, I think.
And I think it's fair to say the vast majority of people who've commented on this story, Joe, have also thought she was in the wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Victoria says, I hate seeing posts like that. So many have gone viral, and I strongly disagree with the reasons behind it and the fact most people think it's funny. Social media doesn't doesn't give you the right to humiliate another person, whether you are a parent or not. Zoe says simply the answer is no. Just lead by example. How is bullying, which this certainly is, your child teaching him how to behave? And Olivia says, no, it's not the way to act.
Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.
Would you say that equality is important?
Yeah, because women are still basically, although they say we're equal to men, we're not. We're not in wages or social skills or anything like that. I think we're still basically second class at the moment, you know. I mean, a lot of people would probably disagree, but I think when you come down to the nitty-gritty, we are. There's a lot of companies that don't actually have women, even within the chairman and then the executive. They're just below that level and they just can't get there.
Do you think equality is important in this day and age?
Yes, to a certain extent, but why should I lower my standards to be like a man?
Yes. Well, why not, is the thing, yeah.
Yes, because women work as hard as men and, you know, they should be paid the same and treated the same.
Yeah, of course, we should all have the same opportunities, but also it's okay if you want to be a woman as well, if you know what I mean, and yeah, vice versa.
I think we're all equal. Nobody's better than anyone else. We're all the same. Well, I think women should be paid the same as men.
Well, we're all the same, aren't we? Yeah, women are actually more important than men. We are very good multitaskers. Men are not. They can only do one thing.
Equality, yes. I don't like the way that the women are treated, especially with the wages. My wife's worked all her life, got a full pension, right? But each year her pension gets further away than mine, simply because she don't get as much. It's all wrong.
I am sure there are very few parents who haven't been left a little bit red-faced at some point because their little darlings had a full-blown meltdown in public. Or perhaps I've been out with Joe. But have you ever been asked to leave a shop or a cafe because of it? Well, one mother said she was left embarrassed after she was asked to leave a John Lewis store when customers complained because her toddler was having a tantrum. Lindsay was out shopping with a friend at the store's Trafford Centre branch in Dumplington, what a great name, when her 16-month-old daughter started making her presence felt. Lindsay said she tried to calm her down, she tried to get the harness on, but then she was asked to leave. She made a formal complaint. She was offered a £20 voucher as an apology. But do we think that she was right to be asked to leave if the noise was disturbing other customers? Should they have been more sympathetic? Have you ever been asked to leave somewhere because of a tantrum, your child's rather than yours? Or would you complain if a child's wailing was just that little bit too loud? Women Today at manxradio.com, text 166 177. Had loads of thoughts on this on the Women Today Facebook page. I mean, Joe, it must have happened to you at some point.
Oh, so many times. And always in John Lewis, actually. I was never asked to leave. And yeah, I have to say, and that's just simply when I wasn't allowed to get my jumper that I wanted. No, I have to say, I've been in so many situations with both my children where they've misbehaved and had tantrums. Of course I had. It's completely normal. And I think that you get a lot more stressed with it. Therefore, the child picks up on it and therefore the child gets more stressed too. And it's very difficult because I've had people tutting at me. I've had people looking and staring. And, you know, it's the public's perception. It's very, very sad because they obviously don't think that they've had a tantrum ever in their life before. But I wouldn't say I was ever asked to leave, but I chose myself to leave, I guess, when my toddler constantly kicked off at music group. But it's the public's perception. It's very sad.
Jenny, you have a small son. Has this ever happened to you?
It hasn't. He's a very good boy, but it is stressful taking a toddler into the shop. Oh,
your child's never had a tantrum?
No, he doesn't. He's great. He's brilliant.
No.
But, you know, I am one for, if I see a woman struggling with a toddler, I don't look at them, you know, you just let them get on with it. But this really shocked me. And I couldn't believe that they offered them a £20 voucher.
They did send some flowers as well.
Right.
Oh,
well, you know,
nice.
I still don't think that's completely, you know, recovering the situation, but it is stressful.
Mark, Tyler, you have children and grandchildren now. Your views on this?
Well, daughter, when she was 2, we lived in Gibraltar, and the phrase "I can do it, Daddy, I can do it, Mummy" was the phrase "I can do it," and think she can do it. That's fine. Don't help her. One of the daily things was pushing the pushchair across the runway where the aeroplanes land in Gibraltar, because our flat was one side of the runway, the town is the other side, and as a road goes across it, lights start flashing because there's an aeroplane coming. and you get shouted at by air traffic controllers and by military police people saying, please clear the runway. There is an air... I can do it, Daddy. I can do it. Can you imagine picking up a child and a pushchair and running for the safety barriers as a British Airways passenger jet is hurtling towards you from England? And she still tells that story herself. I can do it, Daddy will never, ever stop ringing in my ears. We didn't cause an international incident, but it was close.
I love the press that this has received as well. You know, it is absolutely everywhere. I tried to get hold of the lady, but it was impossible to get hold of her. And also kind of got in touch with a few of the newspaper companies, and they haven't come back to me because I'm dying to speak to her. She needs to have like a fanfare every time she walks into John Lewis now, doesn't she? It's brilliant.
But I can't believe that she was asked to leave. I mean, I do know it is annoying if somebody's child is kicking off, but we have all been there. Do you know, get a grip. Let's be a little bit more sympathetic. And yeah.
We've all been there, apart from one.
Well, yeah.
Who sat with us. Who allowed you on the radio? Every child has a tantrum.
Some interesting thoughts on this. John says most people nowadays have no control over their kids or even think it's necessary. Whatever the little darlings do is wonderful. Nobody else has ever considered. Fair point there. Joe and Jenny, some more comments?
Yep, Susie has said, my daughter developed an ear-piercing shriek at 8 months old, about a week before we were about to go on holiday. My very sensible childminder said she was only doing it for attention, so to ignore her. It was hard, but we were able to do it until we got on the plane to Cyprus. She shrieked, everyone turned around, so she did it again and again and again for 4 hours. And Lindsay says, when my youngest was a baby, he occasionally had what I called tired tantrums, where he would inconsolably scream for about 45 to 90 minutes until he finally went to sleep. It was totally unpredictable and a nightmare.
Yes, and Samantha says, the toddler was 16 months old. How ridiculous. I work in a shop, and if a parent is struggling with a less than happy child, I have a stash of stickers, some colouring sheets, flags and crayons, and I subtly ask the parent if I can help, and would any of these help?
It's honestly humbling to meet you. You're 16. Where did your love for education come from?
We are human beings, and this is the part of our human nature, that we don't learn the importance of anything until it's snatched from our hands. And when, in Pakistan, when we were stopped from going to school, at that time, I realized that education is very important, and education is the power for women. And that's why the terrorists are afraid of education. They do not want women to get education, because then women would become more powerful.
They took the signs off of schools. They went underground. You spoke out publicly against the Taliban. What gave you the courage to continue this?
My father was a great encouragement for me, because he spoke out for women's rights. He spoke out for girls' education. And at that time, I said that why shall I wait for someone else? Why shall I be looking to the government, to the army, that they would help us? Why don't I raise my voice? Why don't we speak up for our rights? The girls of Swat, they spoke up for their rights. I started writing diary. I spoke on every media channel that I could, and I raised my voice on every platform that I could. And I said, I need to tell the world what is happening in Swat, and I need to tell the world that Swat is suffering from terrorism, and we need to fight against terrorism.
When did you realize the Taliban had made you a target?
When in 2012, I was with my father, and someone came and she told us that, have you seen on Google that if you search your name and the Taliban have threatened you? And I just could not believe it. I said, no, it's not true. Because we thought that the Taliban are not that much cruel that they would kill a child, because I was 14 at that time. But then I said, if he comes, what would you do, Malala? Then I would reply myself that, Malala, just take a shoe and hit him. But then I said, if you hit a Talib with your shoe, then there would be no difference between you and that Talib. You must not treat others that much with cruelty and that much harshly. You must fight others, but through peace and through dialogue and through education. Then I said, I'll tell him how important education is, and that I even want education for your children as well. And I'll tell him, that's what I want to tell you. Now do what you want.
Now, a report has found the vast majority of young women in the UK have been sexually harassed in public places. Paul Smith has the details.
Nearly 9 out of 10 18 to 24-year-olds claim they've suffered unwanted sexual attention.
Whistling, staring. I could be in jeans and boots like today, and it's, oi, sexy. It makes me feel really vulnerable.
A YouGov survey also suggests 2/3 of women have experienced some form of harassment in the streets or on public transport. Sarah Green is from the End Violence Against Women Coalition.
We need to have a conversation about the fact that it's not trivial, that it's not funny, and how it makes women feel.
The poll also found some ethnic minorities not only face inappropriate sexual comments, but racism too.
So nearly half of 18 to 24-year-olds say they've experienced unwanted sexual touching. 1 in 10 women say someone offered to help them, but most admit they would have liked others to have intervened. So I'd say some pretty shocking statistics in this. But what do we actually think about these findings? Are we surprised at all? I don't know, Jo, what did you make of them?
You know, I am actually quite surprised, but also I don't enjoy reading this kind of thing because, you know, I do have a young daughter and I'm thinking about her growing up in the streets. And I think we take for granted over in the Isle of Man that we do feel pretty safe. I mean, I know that even, you know, older people tend to move over to the Isle of Man because they feel as if they can walk around the streets in safety. But I don't think we should ever take it for granted completely. But if you're in London, I do feel that you need to be a lot more aware. And I think people in England, you tend to get a lot more comments said to you in England as well than you do in the Isle of Man, I've noticed too.
Jenny, what did you think about this?
It's I don't know how you'd kind of define harassment. It's a very, you know, it's hard to say this is that and this is the other. You know, I've had people saying things, you know, boys saying things, and I've kind of went, you know, not really too bothered. But, and, you know, somebody said there that they were being stared at, and, you know, can that be harassment? I can't really understand that. Really.
I think that is such a good point, Jenny, actually. The fact that what do we classify as harassment? What is it? Because, yeah, to just be looked at, I mean, come on, we can have a little bit of flirting going on, can't we? We have that in the workplace even.
Isn't it anything, though, that makes you feel uncomfortable?
Well, you know what makes you uncomfortable and might not make me uncomfortable. I mean, I think probably we might know that. But, you know, I do think that in actual fact, some people just take things too far. Yeah. And I think we need to just chill out a bit because, you know, it's just an easy claim to make, isn't it? I think when it is something quite specific, it might be a sexual harassment. But I think, as you say, Jenny, to be looked at, to have a bit of banter with, I think we just need to chill out a little bit more.
I was really interested in the comments that were made about intervention, Mark, and it took me back to something that you had said way before Women's Day actually even started, about an incident you witnessed driving home one night, which really got you thinking.
Yes, it was just one of those moments you think, what should I do? I'd finished the Late Show, sitting in on the Late Show for Ben, I think it was. And there was a young woman, I don't know how old, not very young, let's say 20-something, staggering up the road, one shoe on, obviously tottering a bit, worse for wear. It's about 2 a.m. And I thought, what I really want to do is just say, can I give you a lift? Are you all right? Can I give you a lift? I didn't, because what if, da-de-da, she thinks I'm going to be unpleasant. I get at home, she says, that was a bloke from Manx Radio gave me a lift. Oh, I'm sure he touched me in an inappropriate... But so I didn't stop, and I felt wretched about not stopping, because every instinct in my body, being a father, being a grandfather, you know, with, you know, family, you think, well, I should be able to do something, and I didn't. Now, going back to your point about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, I think from my side, I think a lot of other guys, we don't know, because we're not that clever, what sort of interest a woman wants when they are all dressed up looking fantastic and fabulous and got skimpy little clothes on and look amazing. What are we supposed to do? It's like that old question, does my bum look big in this? It's almost that conundrum. What do you do? What do you look? Do you look away? Now, somebody is dressed for impact. What are they supposed to do?
I think that is also a really good point, though, because it goes back to the way everybody dresses these days, you know, and I think actually it puts a lot of pressure on guys, because the girls are out there dressed up, and teenagers a lot of these days are dressing, basically wearing next to nothing. But I think it's a really sad society that we live in if you're even thinking that you can't even pick a girl up off the street to help her because you're worried about what might happen.
I think if I'd have had my wife in the car, we would have done.
Yeah.
I think that would have been fine. My wife could have put her in the back, said, where do you live, love? Yeah, take you home. That's not a problem. That would have been quite different. But me on my own, I backed away from it.
It's an interesting point you raised there about the being dressed. And there's a woman who is behind a new campaign, which I'll mention in just a moment, who talks about the really unfortunate old-fashioned school of thought in certain circles that women dress wearing short skirts, for example, and so therefore they are asking for it. And I can see what you're saying, Mark.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying because nobody should be made to feel uncomfortable. But what should my reaction be? Should I even look? I'm not talking about, oh, she's asking for it at all. Please don't think that. I'm just saying, do I look away when somebody is dressed to impress somebody else? I don't know.
Are they dressed to impress somebody else, or are they just dressed for themselves?
Of course. Of course. I really think, when you go out with a bunch of girls and they may be your friends that you go out with, and you can tell the ones that are out to impress and the ones that just want to have a good night, because it tends to be what's on show, because you're asking for a reaction for it. You're not just going out because you think, I've got a great pair of assets, I'm just going to have them for myself. You can do that by just actually wearing something simple. But if you're exposing yourself, I think you are asking to have attention.
Yeah, I think the proof of that kind of lies in Facebook, to be honest, with all the selfies. You know how many girls take pictures of themselves before they go out, and that's proof in itself that they're not just doing it. Well, they are doing it to make themselves look good, but at the same time they're waiting for opinions from everyone else.
Absolutely. You've got to question why people are doing that. And, if we're all very honest with ourselves, if you take a selfie and put it on social media, you want likes, because at the end of the day, girls can be quite needy. And I think that if you don't get the likes, you get disappointed. Yes. This isn't speaking for myself, though.
Thank you so much for downloading the Women Today podcast. As ever, we do really want to hear from you. Who do you want to hear on the show? What sort of topics do you want us to be talking about? Go to the Women Today Facebook page, like and follow the page. You can message us there. You can follow us on Twitter. It's at MR Women Today, or you can also email us womentoday@manxradio.com. We are here just after 2:00 every weekday. Do hope you can join us.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin, or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.